Hey, everybody, it's Jim Deedlow. This is my podcast, the Jim Deedlow Podcast. I'm a morning host, and a lot of the podcast is actually recorded live as part of a morning show, but I kind of do it toward a podcast these days. A few years ago, I hired a consultant to come in and look at what I do with the morning show. And the very first thing that he did was on the sheet that he gave me was that you have to limit the time for callers. And I thought this was a little bit, it was just outside of what I wanted to do, in that I just sit by myself mostly. And instead of having a co host, I have a number of regular callers, some of whom are quite contentious, some it's a big love fest, some it's just making fun of each other. Some it gets kind of serious on the topics, and it's a lot of fun, and it's been working that way for 102 years. I worked here in the mid-'80s at WJOB AM 1230 for legendary broadcaster Julian Colby, and I did shows for him, and I kind of told him one time, I go in there and I talk, and sometimes I just want to talk for a little while. He goes, yeah, that's okay, but you got to remember, you don't have a co-host. So your co-host is essentially everybody who calls in. And I thought about it, and I go, yeah, I guess you're right. And then when I hired the consultant says, yeah, well, consultant says you have people waiting to talk. 219-845-1100. You got something on your mind? Hele, Maraharanyeski, and Papa Maranarana. Me too. You know what I'm saying? There's so much that goes on in the world. I don't even know where to begin. But I think I'll begin by just probably taking a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. What's up?
When are you guys going to move to your old studio?
Pretty soon. Yeah, we got to be out of here by the end of the month. So it's probably going to be kind of a holiday thing, because we're moving along pretty well. Walt, we made a big announcement yesterday. Our sister company, it used to be called the JED TV Sports Network. It is now the Heartland Sports Network, and we added another conference yesterday. And that added a whole bunch more work. So we added the Greater South Shore Conference. That is the GSSC. We have the NCC, and we have the PCC. So we just added a whole bunch more teams, and I want to say thank you to John Steinhilber and the rest of the people of Greater South Shore Conference for trusting us to bring your high school's games to streaming video on our network.
So do they pay you, or is it all just that paid through advertisement?
So what we did, Walt, is that, we started out as a paid network, and it worked out pretty well. And I think we had 1,500 subscribers right off the bat. And I'm like, wow, you can make money there, and you could also make it from your advertisers. And then I had a few advertisers who said, you know what, if it was like radio and you had, more people listening or watching, then you would get more of us. And so one day we just said, let's just make it free and do it like radio and see what happens. So most of it is free. Sometimes we have to charge per the IHSAA on a tournament game or something. But for the most part, we're like the only network, kind of growing network, that does it for free. The model is that you charge people and then you also sell ads, so you get two levels of income. But for whatever reason, there's enough people around here, Powers Health, Tech Credit Union, the carpenters, laborers, Local 7-1 at the BP Union. Everybody stepped forward. So they pay enough that we don't have to charge for the games. And over the weekend, it's kind of gaining momentum. And over the weekend, we sent Peter Krakowski down to Indianapolis to cover Andrean and Maryville. And he, it's not on our network, it's on Facebook. We had 1 million views of our posts. So, as a business guy, I hired a business guy. I hired, Matt Hansen come in here and look at everything, and he
Mm-hmm.
just added everything up, and he's like, "You're an idiot." And I'm like, "All right, why am I an idiot?" He goes, "You're selling this stuff way too cheap." So anybody that's on a long-term contract, good for you, because Hansen's in here and he's starting to count up all the little impressions, and they're starting to add up, Walt. So,
Are you
anyways, that's
listening?
where we're at.
Are you listening to this consultant?
All right,
Or are you
don't be
being more
like that,
resentful?
okay? Don't be like that. Because you know me, and you're like, all right, I know that you hired a consultant. He's come in, he's telling you what to do, and you're probably not listening to him. That's your thought, right?
Just a thought.
Listen, I have made a pledge to listen to him. So the very first thing he walks in the door, and you know what he says? We got to change the name. It's no longer Jed. It's Heartland Sports Network. Do you know how hard that was?
I can imagine.
It's not named after me anymore.
Well, let me just say, for me, the sound of it sounds a whole lot better, more marketing oriented. Jed, what's Jed?
Yeah, I mean, it was just screwing around. Now it's like real business, and
Yes.
I can't make fun of people. And I went to a meeting yesterday for 2 hours, and it's just, but I just kind of rather do what we're doing right now, which me make fun of you and everybody else, and I can't do that as much anymore. So what's on your mind, man?
You don't want to be the problem with small business. You get really comfortable with a certain niche that, I mean, you survive 5 years and your feeling is it's okay. I mean, somebody comes along and says, you can do a lot better than this, and you can do this, and he's probably just telling you stuff, the standard operating procedure for your kind of operation, and it's tough for the founder to accept that kind of advice from an outsider, even though you're paying for it.
Thanks for giving it excellent context, Walt. As a matter of fact, the state of Indiana has taken an interest in us, and they specifically sent me to a conference where they called it a founders conference, and there were a bunch of people like me. You wouldn't believe how many of the entrepreneurs in Indiana are actually older. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them left another field. Now they just put all their life savings into some cockamamie idea like I did. But we're sitting there, and the guy lays out this full 45-minute thing about how the person who came up with the idea and started a business and had a vision and everything is usually not the person to run it.
Right.
What do you mean, right?
Well, that was as a business professor. That's one of the points I made to my students. We're not here to make you into entrepreneurs. We're here to make you into managers. And entrepreneurs have no problem with taking on high risk and getting stuff off the ground. Our job is to prepare you to be a day-to-day manager, to keep the lights on and not to take on high risk. The most successful managers take middle grade risks, and entrepreneurs they're proud of all the high risks they take, and they're even proud of going bankrupt. I've heard that story from entrepreneurs. I was bankrupted twice, and I came back bigger than ever. How about that?
God, well, you just parroted the leader of the conference, and
Mm-hmm.
B, you parroted me.
Well,
We've been doing
question.
this a long time. You knew what you were doing. But anyways, that was kind of slap in the face. So I've had to change and start to think in terms of bringing in managers. And we just got one on the marketing side, and Sam kind of was already a manager. He thought I already took outsized risk. You know what I mean? But I think you're right, because it really is a risk return thing. And it's difficult for me to go on every day in business without just like a big bet on. I got to have risk. Otherwise, it gets a little bit mundane to me. And that's
So
not
you're a
what
risk
you want
junkie.
in running an organization. You don't want that person running your organization. You're right.
Nope. Mm-mm. So you're a risk junkie. Is that it?
You know, I can say this, Walt, at various portions in my life, I've been a junkie, but risk is just one of the many, yes. And you know what? I'm not the only one. I mean, the Board of Trade attracts people who are addicted to risk. And then that's why 80% of the guys that I knew are either dead or alcoholics or broke down or, living in an apartment, driving an Uber when they were, making millions, but they just kept being addicted to risk. And then one day the music stopped.
Right.
And they couldn't get anywhere else, so they got into drugs or alcohol or more risk. And then you have to make that adjustment. But it was everywhere, man. I mean, the more risk, the better. The more times you blew out or lost all your money, the bigger badge of honor it was. And I had it twice.
How about an item for the audience to talk about?
Yeah, I know. Me and you are
This
just BSing. There it
this
is,
is an
Walt,
item
thinking
out of
about my business and my audience. All right, go ahead.
This is out of Chicago Tribune, November 17th. Voting by phone gets trial run in Alaskan City. Anchorage, which is the largest city in Alaska, is with a population of about 240,000. They're going to add as an option to going in person and but to allow for people to call in to register their vote. And shortly after this item appeared, all of a sudden, Mr. Newsom in California announced his desire to have phone-in voting. What do you think of that? And what does the audience think about that? Do you think?
I guess on the surface, it looks like a really good way to have fraud, right?
Right.
But if you really think about it, I mean, you could transfer $100,000 from one account to another on your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can't. I mean, they make it secure enough with different layers of password protection and firewalls and stuff. People right down the hall from me could set that up for you in a couple hours. Why can't we vote on our phone? I mean, you can't make it secure. They can't match up. But here's the problem. Then they'll be able to match up your phone number. I don't know if I like that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean,
let's see what the audience says.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Should we be able to vote on their phone? I want to give you another story, Walt, about voting. Indiana Secretary of State Diego Morales and Attorney General Todd Rokita, who grew up over here and went to St. Tom's, they had this lawsuit against the federal government in terms of trying to verify Indiana's voters. And it looks like they've settled the lawsuit yesterday. And what happened was that they ultimately found that 21 non-citizens voted in recent elections in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And they're calling it a win, of course. Diego Morales says, this landmark settlement provides Indiana with long overdue tools to protect the integrity of our elections. I am grateful for President Trump's leadership and his administration's commitment to upholding election integrity. Now, the Indy Star says that, and Rokita says the settlement delivers the federal access we're entitled to under law, blah, blah, blah. So the Indy Star says that 0.0007% of voters, that's if all 21 of them voted in the same election, would be basically fraudulent votes. 0.00007. So I don't know, what is that, 7/10,000th of 1% or something like that? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's worse than that. My impulse. I mean, I grew up in East Chicago. Let's start there. And it was just open knowledge. I mean, they bought and sold votes. And now that, I mean, the idea of the masses of illegal aliens in the country that have come into this country out of control, no vetting, no nothing, and they're pretty clever people. I mean, if they have an incentive to cheat, they do. I mean, they're heavily into stealing people's identity, and so my impulse says, one, I don't like the idea of phone voting, and the second is I think the issue of illegal activity with respect to voting is worse than they've been able to find.
Well, I'll take the first part of your conversation of growing up in East Chicago. Yes, people stuffed ballots and, we didn't, it looks like we're going to lose. Let's find another 112 ballots. Oh, look, here they are. They were in so-and-so's trunk, and dump them on the pile, and then you win the election. I mean, how many times did that happen? It was almost impossible to trust an election in East Chicago, especially a close one, right? But in Indiana, here it is, about 3 million Hoosiers voted in the 2024 general election. If all 21 non-citizen votes found by Rokita and Morales took place, it would amount to 0.0007% of the electorate that year. So, I don't know. It just seems kind of minuscule to go and look at all the votes cast and you found 24 bad ones. That's just, I don't know if that's an efficient use of Indiana taxpayer money. Now, the one thing I would like to vote on my phone so I don't have to go anywhere, but they're going to be able to track who you are. And do you want people to know who your vote is? No, not at all, right? At least you go into the one of the election booths and they can't match it up to you. They know that you're voting, but there's no real way to tie it back to you. That's my main concern.
Well, let me offer an anecdote, and that is, I was voting this number of years ago, and I noticed that my daughter's name was still on the voting rolls, and she hadn't lived with us for 10 years, and in fact, she was living in Europe at the time. And I said to the administrators there, I said, "Why is my daughter's name still on the voting rolls? I mean, she has not lived with us for 10 years. She's in Europe." And I got a very tepid response in terms of what could be done about it. I said, this should be taken out because this kind of, the classic case of voter hanky-panky is look for people who are dead, still on the rolls, people who don't live there anymore, and send people in to vote on those names that are no longer valid. And,
so did you make a big stink and then they're like, hey, be quiet?
No, I didn't make a big stink. I simply asked the question. I mean, shouldn't my daughter's names be off the rolls? And they kind of looked at each other. They talked a little bit, and I'm sorry?
You have to re-register every year. I don't. Well, no, you don't have to re-register anymore. I haven't registered to vote in years. I just go and my name's always there. So how are they going to know that I'm not there anymore?
Well, the methods you can use to purge the voting rolls of those kinds of things, and Democrats always oppose it. You're vote stealing. I mean, you're denying people the right to vote by going through and purging. And I suspect that there's a lot more of that than they're willing to look for.
You're just extrapolating your East Chicago past. Hey, Walt, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for the conversation and the free consultation. Talk to you.